Okay, let's dive right into this. Today we're focusing on a really fascinating and frankly absolutely crucial life skill. We're talking about navigating social boundaries. We're going to explore this through a sort of practical worksheet of real-world scenarios, following a child named Kenny. Kenny's just starting to figure out the sometimes totally confusing world of social rules. I mean, we've all seen it, right? Someone who just butts into a conversation or blurts out a question that makes everyone in the room freeze in this awkward silence. Talk about foot and mouth syndrome. So today's explainer is all about understanding exactly why that happens and how we can teach ourselves and kids like Kenny to handle these tricky social boundaries with some real grace. So here's our quick roadmap for today's explainer. First up, we've got the communication filter. Second, curious versus nosy. Third, pausing intrusive questions. Fourth, the oversharing trap. And finally, empathy and boundaries. Let's get to it.
Starting off with Section 1, the communication filter.
Okay, so we all have that sudden urge to just blurt things out, don't we? To immediately correct someone or just say literally the very first thing that pops into our heads. But our brains actually need a split second to pause. I want you to think of the communication filter as this mental net sitting right there in your brain. Its entire job is to help us decide if our thoughts should actually be spoken aloud or if they should be kept safely tucked inside. A really strong filter catches those overly critical or accidentally hurtful words, but it lets all the good stuff, the kind, connecting words, flow right through.
Right, so how do we actually build this net for Connie? Well, it really comes down to a super simple 4-step mental checklist. Step 1, you think the thought. Step 2, you pass it through your mental filter. Step 3, and honestly, this is the magic one. Ask yourself, is this kind and is this necessary? And finally, step 4, you consciously choose to either speak it or lock it away. Just practicing this tiny pause, it is a massive social game changer.
Moving on to Section 2, curious versus nosy, and really understanding that line. And this brings us to a classic childhood dilemma that, let's be honest, a lot of adults still completely struggle with. It's the fine line between true curiosity and just being nosy. Curiosity is this wonderful outward desire to learn about the world. Asking something like, hey, how do CCTV cameras work, is a fantastic question. But being nosy, that's prying. Asking a neighbor, why do you have 6 CCTV cameras? Well, that crosses a line. And honestly, it might just make them want to buy a 7th. You see, one seeks knowledge while the other demands a personal justification. It's a subtle difference, but it is massive in practice.
Now, here is an incredibly freeing thought to keep in mind. You do not need to have an opinion on everything. Really. Just because you happen to notice a child wearing a traditional festival outfit, or maybe you observe someone's specific eating habits, you don't always need to comment on it. Having that constant urge to excessively comment on everything around you, that is a clear sign of a malfunctioning communication filter. Sometimes just noticing something and letting it be is absolutely the smartest social move you can make.
All right, Section 3, pausing intrusive questions. To really see this in action, let's bring in Kenny's friends Haru and Minho. But first, we actually need to establish what we call the social no-go zones for acquaintances. Basically, you should never cross into asking about someone's salary or money. For kids, a classmate's test marks are totally off limits. You definitely shouldn't press for exact details on someone's travel plans or interrogate them about their festival foods. Also, don't question why someone hired specific household help. And please, don't aggressively comment on a child's screen time, like pointing out they've been on an iPad for 8 hours. These topics are strictly private property. Let's test this out with a scenario. Say Haru just got his math test back, and he looks really sad. Should Coney walk right up and ask him what marks he got? If we use our mental filter, the answer is absolutely not. Asking for the specific mark makes Haru's pain all about Coney's curiosity. Instead, Coney should mind her own business on the grade and just offer some friendly support by saying something simple like, hey, are you okay? Let's look at another one with Minho. His family eats non-vegetarian food during a cultural festival. So, should Kenny ask why his parents even got married if one is vegetarian and the other isn't? Again, absolutely no way. It is incredibly intrusive to question someone's family dynamics, their marriages, or their personal beliefs. Asking something like that is a prime example of a totally failing social filter. Which brings us to Section 4, the oversharing trap. This is all about protecting your peace. Now, let's flip the script for a second. That mental filter doesn't just stop us from prying. It also protects us from giving away way too much personal info. When you're dealing with acquaintances, you want your answers to be polite, sure, but also beautifully vague. For hobbies, saying, I like games is perfectly safe. But admitting, I play on my iPad for 8 straight hours? Well, that might invite some totally unwanted judgment. Same with travel.
Saying we're going on a trip is great, but giving out exact dates and locations is honestly a bit of a security risk. If someone is prying into your home life or schedule, you have to mentally and sometimes literally draw the curtains on them to protect your own space.
And finally, Section 5, Empathy and Boundaries.
This is where our source material offers a really profound realization. You might be wondering, what happens when adults constantly break these rules? Well, sometimes it's actually not born of malice at all. It is highly possible that they are neurodivergent. They might literally lack that innate social filter we've been discussing this whole time, which means they genuinely don't know their questions are making people uncomfortable. They aren't trying to be mean, they just honestly do not see the boundary.
So, this leads to a pretty delicate balancing act. On one hand, you absolutely must have firm boundaries to protect your peace. If someone is being way too intrusive, it's perfectly fine to give vague answers, or like we said, draw those curtains. But on the other hand, you can practice giving grace. You can understand that they might not naturally have that mental filter, and you can choose to be kind anyway without actually letting them trample all over your boundaries.
Navigating the social world isn't always easy. And the truth is, we are all going to slip up sometimes. But with a little practice, we can absolutely get better at recognizing where those lines are. So I'm going to leave you with this thought today. The very next time you feel that irresistible urge to blurt out a question or drop an unsolicited opinion, take a pause and ask yourself, are you building a bridge or are you just crossing a boundary? Remember to pull up that mental net. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.